Welcome to the Art Lady channel. Today's lesson is going to be on the passenger pigeon, which unfortunately is an extinct species, and this was extinct in 1914. And when America was first settled and the Europeans came over, there was actually billions of these passenger pigeons, and they would fly overhead in such huge flocks that it would almost look like it was nighttime. There would be so many of them. They were really in abundance. And what happened was the first farmers, they started settling in the eastern coast of America, and they started clearing huge land areas so that they could grow wheat and their crops for survival. And so they ended up removing a lot of the habitat of the passenger pigeon. They also would actually shoot the passenger pigeons as they would fly by because they were considered a nuisance bird. There were so many of them that they would eat up the crops, eat up the wheat that they were growing, the seed of the wheat that they were growing. So they would actually just go on hunting spurs and just kill hundreds at a time. So that's what caused their extinction, which is pretty sad when you consider there was billions of these birds. In Wisconsin, it was reported in the 1800s to be the last known nesting site of passenger pigeons. And then by 1914, there was one passenger pigeon left in America. They were in the Cincinnati Zoo, and unfortunately in 1914 is when it passed away. So that's the last known passenger pigeon. So we're going to be creating a passenger pigeon today in honor of these wonderful little species that lived not too long ago. To start the passenger pigeon, we're going to be using 9 by 12 paper. And if you want to scale this up, you can scale it up as well. You're just going to have to not follow all my formulas of measurement, but you can always do a bigger paper and several birds on that paper, which would be quite beautiful too. But I'm going to show you just one on 9 by 12 paper. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off by taking the 9-inch, and going down about 3 fingers here. And I'm in the very center of my 9. So I'm going to find the center mark, and I'm going to go down 3 fingers and put a mark, just a dot, a very small dot. Now I'm going to blow this up for you to see better. That's going to be the eye. So now I'm going to go around, and I'm going to make about a 1/4 inch circle and color it in just lightly. From here, I'm going to go, now the 1/4 inch is almost as big as the end of if you have a Sharpie or a pencil, it's the very end of your pencil or the very end of the Sharpie. Now I'm going to go ahead and very closely, as close as I can, I'm a little shaky this morning, come around and make it look almost like a donut for the eye. Now I'm going to jump over just a little bit in the center of this eye and put a dot. I'm going to get this bigger so you can see it even better. And from here, I'm going to go over diagonally with a slight curve. It's only about a 1/4 inch. And this one's going to be a little bit longer, so I'm coming down diagonally, just a little bit bigger. This is forming the curve of the beak. I'm going to come over probably a finger's width. So I'm going to come down, curving it down and over. I don't want to extend it too far past this line though, because this line's going to come across. This one has a slight curve. It's not a perfectly straight line. It's going to slightly curve up and then right to the point here. And to make that point, I'm just going to extend this down a little bit. So I have a slight sharp beak. That's the beak area. Now from here, I'm going to do a nice, beautiful, graceful curve. It's going to be slightly diagonal at first. Then I'm going to do a nice rounded head coming around. I want it to be equal distance from this eye. Let me bring it back out a little bit so you can see a little bit better here in perspective how it goes. So I'm going to be curving around, and I'm going to end it, if you come from the eye, diagonally outward here. It's approximately a finger's thickness around that head, all around. So I'm going to do it in a nice curve, and I'm going to do it slowly. Watch me first, and then you go ahead and do it. So I'm keeping in mind the distance coming around. Very carefully, a nice, beautiful curve. Now, if you do it with a pencil, you can always adjust that curve or lightly sketch it out to get a better shape. I'll show you how I did my original right here. I'm using a Sharpie today. You can see some of my sketch lines so that you can see it better on camera. Now I'm going to come in with this curve, and this is going to end up coming down a hair, so come on down a little bit more. Now this beak curve is going to come in, but I'm going to do a gentle curve, but I want to end it. If you follow the beak and drop down, we're going to drop down about, not quite, well, I guess we could do 2 fingers. So 2 fingers down. What I want to do right in here is I want to curve in and then right to this. So watch this curve. Curving in to the, makes this thinner, but then it slowly comes out to form these shoulders. So we're starting to form that graceful neck of that pigeon, because they did have a beautiful graceful neck right in here. Now I'm going to come back. Let me bring you all the way out so you can get the full picture. I want to find the very middle of my page here. So I'm going to mark top and bottom. And I want to find the very center and just put a very small mark, guideline right there. Now what I'm going to do with that is I want to come down past that guideline. So if I take the center guideline and I come to this corner, I'm going to mark in the very middle with a dot. So if you imagine 4 quarters or 4 fourths, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the paper. So we have 4 fourths of the paper. So in 1/4 of the paper, I'm going to go to the very center here. And this is going to be my end point for the wing. So I'm going to be curving around in a beautiful, graceful curve right to the neck. So if I place my hand in this center area and imagine at first a beautiful long curve coming in right to here. That way you can kind of pivot all in one motion. So I'm going to come off this neck, maybe bring it down, starting coming out a little bit more, having that beautiful neck. Now watch, I'm going to curve from here, come out past this center line, and then swoop right to, or as close as you can, to the point here in this quarter, this 4th area, this 4th block. Now I'm going to come back up in here past this center line from the end of the neckline here to the center line, and I'm going to put a mark halfway. And this I'm going to do an inverted curve here for the wing. So I'm going to come out and to the end of the wing. So now I have a beautiful slender bird with a nice slender neck and a nice wide wing. Now I'm going to jump up about 3 fingers on the bottom of the wing and put a dot here. I'm going to form the back and then the end of the bird here. So I'm going to curve out and right to the end. Don't go way out. You don't want them to be real fat. This line I'm going to extend now. Here's my bottom of the page. So I'm going to take this line and I'm going to go behind, continue to go straight, but go behind that wing and curve down. You want it to blend beautiful with this. Straight down, straight, and go almost to the edge of your page. Then I'm going to bring this back up, and we can get some detail in here, so I can bring it back up. Then I can come off of this, bring it back up, give it some feather texture, and back up straight. This forms the tail in here, coming down. Then I can get some beautiful lines in here as well. You can add more detail to your tail afterwards. Now we're going to do the other wing, which is behind, the smaller wing. It's not smaller in real life, but it appears smaller in perspective. So I'm going to come out, I want to come out with the same angles here. So I'm going to work on this line. I'm going to come down diagonal. Don't come down as long as this, because remember, this one's going to be a smaller shape than this for the back wing. And then I'm going to curve it around right to the body, so we don't see the full side of this. Now basically we're almost done. Let's put in some detail. This passenger pigeon had some beautiful kind of reddish color in here. So I'm coming halfway and just doing a light kind of line here. This just shows some of the different colors in the feathers. So this would be a lighter color, reddish values feathers here. And then on this side of the body too as well. So we came down and around with some of that different color feathers, and I'll show you the coloring after. Now we're going to get the longer wing feathers in. So I'm going to put here, it's going to be a sideways. So at the very center line, come down, curve it down. I'm matching this curve here, and then I'm just going to bring it up. We're going to get some of the longer feather lines in, same here. And these don't have to be exactly matching, because this is just feather. And then I can add a smaller one here. And now I want some of the longer feathers. These are the flight feathers. So just some longer lines. And then the feathers get gradually smaller and shorter. Just some U's or V's in this area. And now I'm going to fill in some longer feathers here with straight lines. And then now we're on, the next step is to go ahead and do the leg, which I'm going to come down, and his leg is right in this section here. So I'm just going to put two short lines down. I'm curving out, down and out, and then curve it back up and around. And now I'm ready to form the branch. And for the branch, we're just going to come out, and you can do the branch any way you want to. And, you know, he's going to come from here, though, down and out, and then behind, a beautiful little graceful shape. And you can even make some more branches up in this way. And then you can add, now the branch is thicker where it meets the actual tree part. Just free-form lines. And then of course you can add more over in here if you'd like. You know, wherever you want it, leaves. You know, I'm just going to explore some gorgeous patterns of color, just some different kind of more watercolory techniques of layering of the greens and all those values behind it to show distance. I'm now going to start painting in the passenger pigeon, and I want to start with this reddish orange area here. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of yellow on my edges. And then I'm going to go into the orange, put a little bit of orange here. And his eye is like a brownish orange as well, so I'm going to put a little bit there. His beak appears to be a lighter value beak as well. So I'm just going to put this on the edge and just blend it with a little bit of water. Right in here. So I have a nice bright yellowish orange on that edge. And now I'm putting up some darker orange here. And it's up to you how you want to color this in. So you can do it any way you want, or you can do it similar to mine. Now, in this image that I'm looking at from the passenger pigeon that I found on the internet, it's got a lot of gray and brownish, or gray color and black. This looks like a print, but I'm going to do it more of a grayish with brown. We're going to put some detail in with that. So I'm going to give it just a very light wash all over of brown, just like this. And a wash is a color that has a lot of water added to it. So I'm going to do that first as a base coat. So you can see I'm just using the water now and pulling this color all over. I'm going to put some on its beak here. So I'm working up light to dark. Just giving a light base coat. And I'm going to do down its tail. It does appear that the tail has a lighter feathers on the edge. I'm going to get this wing area here. And then I'm going to hit this real quick, some brown in here. Very fast. And then I'm going to do just some water at the top of this branch. Right there. Now I'm going to put in some detail. I'm going to use this Art Graph carbon stick, but you can just use your black if you want. And I'm going to put in just some fine lines with the carbon stick. And kind of just let it melt into the wet brown paint. And I'm just going to do kind of U-shape feather textures. And you can see how it's just melting in. This gives it pretty. And I'm barely touching. So if you're using black paint too, you could barely touch the black paint on the tip. And I'm just drawing like U, little U. Now if you have areas that are barely touching up in here, and you can see how the color's fading, which is beautiful. So I don't want to put lots of dark at the top. That'll give it a nice gray as it fades. Okay. So now I'm just touching this wet here, and I'm fading it in. So it makes a nice, just nice color. And if areas are dry, you can always go back, because if you want that bleeding effect, and just re-wet with pure water, then you can come back in, like right on these edges, I kind of want it just blending in. So it's called a wet on wet technique that I'm using for this. And I like the look of that. And then when your brush fades out like this, you can come back in if you need to finish up in here. Right there. Now I'm going to bring back some of the dark. I'm just kind of tracing over these marker lines to bring that in. So it's a very quick technique. And again, I'm going to show you what this is from the box. Art Graph carbon disc. But like I said, you could use just your tempera cake black too. And I'm going to bring in here, this seems to be a little bit darker right in here, so I'm just adding some tiny finer lines right in here as we dry. And a little bit darker. So my brush is pretty dry now for some of the detail up in here. Just fine lines, barely on this tip. I like this brush. This is a Princeton round number 6. So I like it because it's wide and full, so I can cover areas big, but then I also have this tip that I can have beautiful tiny lines with as well. So it's kind of a universal brush. I'm going to put some shadow lines or shading lines at the bottom here, and the same over in here, just kind of dry brushing it. And for its leg or foot, this is a quick process, you can see. Just a very light wisp of orange. Then I'm going to dry my brush and hit it with some of that black to get some of this very fine line texture in for his foot. And the background, I just want it to be very subtle. I want to keep it similar to this print here. And I'm going to barely touch the water. Just very subtle green, and then water to wash in to show that there's some, you know, he's in the forest or the trees or whatnot. And then water, pure water on my brush, and just kind of brush it in. Very light, subtle. I definitely don't want any strong green. And if you do put a lot of green on like that, just wash your brush completely, pull it up with your brush, and pull and move it. Just so that it feels like you have the forest in the background. Pure water, just pulling that color away. If you want to put a little bit of that dark wet, you don't want it to be all the same value. You want some a little bit darker, but not super strong. And again, as this dries too, this is going to dry a little bit lighter than the colors we see. Now I'm just kind of using my dirty water and just putting some space. So just wisps of the greenery. And there you have your passenger pigeon.